What is your true form? Are you formless or do you have form? Or are you neither? Now, I want to speak to you about 3 verses from the great Nididhyasana text, the Avadhuta Gita, where Lord Dattatreya goes in depth into our true form, our supreme form, and why we need to get out of judging whether we are either or when we're talking about form and the formless. So let me read these 3 important verses to you. If you are not free, indeed, then neither are you ever bound. How then can you think of yourself as with form when bound, or as formless when liberated? I know your supreme form, which is ever present and all-pervading like space. Similarly, I know your inferior form, which is indeed like water in a mirage. I have neither guru nor instruction, neither attributes nor action. Know for certain, I am incorporeal like space and absolutely pure by nature. So we often make the mistake of yearning for the formless over the form when we talk about spirituality, right? There's even great Buddhist sutras on this. There are many verses from the great texts in Sanatana Dharma on this. But often people will have a yearning for the formless over the form, but don't really understand what their sort of true form is, right? And so they yearn for the formless over the form, but realize that according to Dattatreya, we are sort of bringing it back to this dichotomy of black and white thinking in an either-or manner, right? And so in the first verse, Dattatreya says that we often think of ourselves with form when we are bound, and in opposition, we think of ourselves as formless when liberated. And Dattatreya is saying this is a complete incorrect way of thinking. We are still reducing our true nature of being to this black and white dichotomy when it's either or, right? Even though we can use such terminology in words when trying to explain the deeper tenets, but Dattatreya is going even a little bit deeper here, right? This is why it is called a Nididhyasana text, right? A text that you discover on the cusp of enlightenment or beyond enlightenment. And so in the next verse, he sort of says, look, we're neither that, right? We're not formless or form, right? He says our supreme form is ever present and all-pervading like space. And so it's this infinite, eternal substratum, right? Does not have a border, doesn't have an end to it. You go this way, it's never ending, that way, never ending, that way, never ending. There is no end to it. It's beginningless and endless, and that's our true nature. This is what Dattatreya is saying, right? And so he also says he knows our inferior nature, which is like water in a mirage. And so in a lot of the Advaita Vedanta texts, they use a lot of these analogies, like the mirage, the snake and the rope, and so forth and so on, right? So the jiva, the ego persona system, the inferior form, so to speak, is the snake in the rope, right? It's not really the rope. It's not the Atman, the undifferentiated state of consciousness, which is identical with Brahman, the ultimate reality. The jiva is basically the mirage. That's your inferior form, right? That's your whole sense of identity. Even the body itself, right, is a temporary vessel for the spirit to experience this reality. And so all of this is part of this mirage, right, this illusion of the snake and the rope. And so we live as though we are the snake, but essentially we are up on the rope, right? And so our supreme form is truly beginningless and endless like space, as Yoshitaka said. And he finishes this sequence off with the next verse where he tries to exhibit that he is speaking from the ultimate state, right? It's not a flex here, right? This is a great text. So he says he has neither guru nor instructions nor attributes or actions, right? He's talking here when he's talking about attributes and actions and so forth and so on. He's kind of alluding to that he is guna free, right? And so the gunas are qualities that we have. We are either rajas, tamas, or sattva, right? It's this guna template that we find in Sanatana Dharma. But then we dissect Brahman cleverly into 2 aspects, either with the gunas or without the gunas, right? So Saguna Brahman is Brahman with qualities, and no guna Brahman is Brahman without qualities. And so Dattatreya is speaking from the no guna state here, right? So he doesn't have guru, he doesn't have attributes, action, is in no need of any instructions, and so forth and so on. And so he states, I am incorporeal like space and absolutely pure by nature. And so he's completely that undifferentiated absolute state of consciousness, the eternal infinite consciousness, if you will. That's what Dattatreya is exhibiting in these 3 verses. That's our true form. He's trying to snap us out of our psychosis of duality so that we understand that oneness is the true reality. And he's trying to snap us out of that. Now, he's not saying that you need to see reality like a strict Advaitin, like, say, Gaudapada, but you need to at least acknowledge that oneness is the true reality, no matter whether you see it subjectively or not. If you accept that teaching, then you can start to progress on the path. If you don't accept that teaching, then you'll continue to believe that you're this isolated sense of self navigating this infinite universe, which is not true. You are one with the infinite universe, and the universe is doing you. You aren't doing it, right? We think that our subjectivity, our limited individual, is running the show, and it surely is not, because if it was left up to them, we'd be veering off course 24 hours a day. But thankfully, the true nature of our being is Atman, which is identical with Brahman. And so we naturally go where we need to be and have the experiences that we need to have. And so Dattatreya is saying in that last verse, know for certain that you are that. You are exactly like space, and you are absolutely pure by nature. If you don't have that mentality, we cannot go very far on the path, because that's truly who we are, right? The Atman is the undifferentiated stage of consciousness. The reason why it's undifferentiated, because it is purely undifferentiated. It is purely like space. It has no border. It has no boundary. It can't be defined. We can only use clumsy words like undifferentiated to sort of indicate to what it actually is, right? But we are definitely not by nature the differentiated jiva, the ego persona system. We are not that. And that is a temporary mortal being that we find ourselves in. But the actual essence of that is the Atman, which is Brahman. Shanti, shanti, shanti.